regulators have a job to do, and their job is a very difficult one. The federal regulators' main job is to ensure the safety and soundness of the banking system. So we should never look at the regulators as the bad guys. The regulators are like the sheriff. They're making certain that the banks are following the appropriate rules and regulations to ensure safety and soundness, never the bad guys.
They have to understand what they're dealing with. They have to understand the culture of, specifically when they go out and make an audit, they have to understand what countries, what cultures that company is dealing with, to be able to understand the idiosyncrasy that goes into the service that we provide. I've had customers tell me, for example, that they send a transaction every day because their kids are back home with some family member. And if they don't send the money every day, those family members might use that money for something else other than feeding their kids. So these are some of the things that they need to understand in detail to be able to assess a company's program, a company's policies and procedures, how they do business. I mean, I've had regulators come to my office just out of college, which they don't even understand what the industry stands for. And those are primary things that we need in order to have a realistic conversation, not only with regulators, but with banks, who unfortunately are forced to act as regulators. They need to understand that to be able to offer us the service that we need, to be able to accept the nature of our business, and not only to regulate us, but to establish real policies and procedures that will work for us and for the customers.
Small businesses really haven't had the same level of exposure to what the banks are going to require to be able to maintain or open up an account. What I mean by that specifically is that the regulations continue to be tweaked, the standards continue to rise, and I think the industry needs to recognize that. This is not the same thing it was in 1980 or 1990 or 2000. The risk to the banking system is great, and it's up for this industry here to recognize that and to take the next steps to be able to provide their banks with the information they need so those banks can support the decision to open and maintain the account with their boards of directors and ultimately their regulators.
We need to educate our regulators in order for them to understand what we're doing. Don't be so flexible as to have a regulator come in and say, well, you know, you have to mitigate your risk. And the way to do that is eliminating MSBs. That's not the way to do it. It's to be able to have a sincere conversation and explain to them how we do it and why we do it. It's being able to cross that line. You know, I'm not saying be incendiary. I'm not saying to disrespect your regulators, but tell them, you know, why. Ask the questions. Why? Why do we have to cancel this customer? Why do we have to cancel this client that's an MSB? Why?